Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Stark Contrast. I'm back with my partner, Mas Verducci, to talk a little bit about what happened at the end of free agency and the March Madness tournament.
Let's do it.
Free agency really came to an end. There was a week there where there was a lot of stuff going on, and we covered that mainly in our last podcast. But shortly after our last podcast, there was a big trade. Justin Fields went to the Steelers for a sixth-round pick, and meanwhile, Kenny Pickett was traded off to the Eagles. So really interesting to see what the Steelers have done with their quarterback room and how they've moved all three of their quarterbacks from last year and brought in two new guys.
Yeah, this is interesting. And last time we talked a lot about Russell Wilson going to the Steelers and also what the Bears were going to be doing with their quarterback situation. I thought that they should stick with Justin Fields, even though that was, not what we thought would actually happen. And then we see, recently, right after our last podcast, we see Fields is now a member of the Steelers quarterback situation. And I think the clear starter is still Russell Wilson. I think Fields will be a backup quarterback for the Steelers, but Wilson is aging and Fields may be trying to, they might try to groom him under Russell Wilson and use him in the future because he's still very young. I think overall, it's very clear now what the path is for the Bears. They're going to be drafting a quarterback. And so, yeah, I think overall, interesting move for the Steelers, but I think for a sixth-round pick, it's worth a gamble. You might have a future quarterback. So I think it was worth it for the Steelers. And if the Bears knew they were moving on, then it works for them as well.
Yeah, from my perspective, for what they got Justin Fields for, a sixth-round pick, it's a conditional pick that can go up to a fourth-round pick based on how much time he plays. Mike Tomlin's already come out and said that Russell Wilson is going to be the starter day one. And that's going to give Justin Fields time to, develop behind a veteran that has a real pocket presence, which he was lacking. He was amongst the bottom five quarterbacks last year while passing from the pocket. So I feel like what the Steelers are doing is they're, going to set up a guy for the future to work in that new Arthur Smith offense, which is run heavy, that he can definitely play into, but also build his pocket presence to get him to throw the ball over the middle of the field and be confident in the pocket, throw under pressure, and things like that. So these two quarterbacks now are, the Steelers are paying about $4 million for the both of them, and they have a potential future star. We've already seen signs from Justin Fields that he can be that playmaker, that, X factor in an offense. So I really like the move. It's going to, take some time, adjusting, putting him into that Arthur Smith offense. But I really like the move. And yeah, like you said, this really shows the path the Bears are going down. They're going to trust Caleb Williams with that number one pick. And I'm just interested to see how that pans out. There's been a little drama about him not wanting to go to Chicago, but that's all out the window now because that's where he will be landing. So, yeah, I'm just really excited to see how it pans out for the Steelers and the Bears next season.
And then Kenny Pickett going to the Eagles. He'll be a backup there. And, Hurts got injured last year. We'll see if he can stay healthy this year. If not, they have a solid backup. He's above average backup quarterback. So I think that's just the situation with that. Nothing special with that acquisition for the Eagles. And, yeah, I think there was one more trade you wanted to talk about.
Before we get into that, I just want to speak a little bit on the Kenny Pickett situation. No hate towards the guy. I just think it didn't pan out in Pittsburgh the way he, foresaw it. But asking for a trade doesn't really make sense for me. Maybe the Steelers wanted to move on. I don't have the knowledge on that. But Russell Wilson's coming in on a one-year deal. He's a 35-year-old quarterback. And, that's a chance for maybe to take a step back, learn behind him, and then have your shot the next year to become a starter again. rather than going off to the Eagles and sitting behind Jalen Hurts, who is not going to lose that job for the foreseeable future. So, really don't understand why Kenny Pickett would want to trade. I feel like his situation in Pittsburgh was much more favorable than what he has now in Philadelphia. But that's the league he plays
No.
in.
Yeah.
It's a tough league. Stuff happens, so best of luck to him.
Yeah, it
And
could have been something. Could have been something with the franchise. Could have been something with the players. It could have been maybe he just wanted a new environment in Philly and saw potential in the Eagles this year. Like it could be anything. But either way, this year he was going to be a backup either way. So you never know.
yeah, the only other notable thing that I really saw happen over these past couple weeks, at the end of the free agency was Mike Williams to the Jets. I think he's a great option for Aaron Rodgers. I'm not high on the Jets. I'm a strong believer in, the Jets are the Jets. They do the Jets thing every year. They get a lot of hype. They don't capitalize. Injuries kind of derail the team. And, I'm not sure Robert Saleh has full control of the building. But it will be interesting to see because Mike Williams is a very good receiver. He's a jump ball guy. I think he'll be, a good complementary option with Garrett Wilson there. And there's still a chance that they can draft a receiver high in the draft. So it's looking bright for that wide receiver core and that offense if the Jets can keep everybody healthy.
Listen, originally I was a fan of Robert Saleh as a coach, but I don't think that. I think unfortunately his time was short lived and should be over with the Jets. I think they just need like a fresh start, like with a new coach, to be honest. However, with Rodgers leading the team as the quarterback this year, the team will be under Aaron Rodgers' wings, not Robert Saleh's wings. So I think with Rodgers' experience and leadership, the guys are going to look towards him. And like you said, the coach may not have full control, but you know, I think Rodgers has a few weapons around him now. And if I were the Jets, I wouldn't draft a receiver. I'd draft a lineman. I would do absolutely everything you can to protect Aaron Rodgers for this year. Get this team into the wild card. Give them some hope. Give the fans something. Like you have Rodgers for one more year. You might as well just go all in and see what you can do with the guys you have. Because last year they had some decent games. Like they had some moments where they looked like they could be, a wild card team, and they're still in a tough division. The Bills and the Dolphins are going to put up a fight. I think the Patriots won't be great next year, but yeah, I mean, I could see the Jets squeaking into the wild card if I think they need to draft a lineman though. I think they just have to protect Rodgers, keep him there, and hopefully he performs. I mean, he's been off for a year and he's quite old, but we'll see.
So one of the things you said that you think Robert Saleh's time should be up in New York. I think this is going to be the deciding year. I'm going to have to disagree that his time should already be up because he has transformed this Jets defense. And if you remember, Robert Saleh was San Francisco's defensive coordinator a couple years ago, and he got the head coaching job. He's a defensive-minded guy. He's made that Jets defense into a top 10, maybe top 5 defense. He just really hasn't been able to build the offensive side of the ball, and
That's all his fault.
between him and Nathaniel Hackett, they haven't really been able to build an offensive system that works. Maybe with Aaron Rodgers coming back, Nathaniel Hackett will find ways to implement plays and stuff that are geared toward Aaron Rodgers that will improve that offense. But yeah, I really think it comes down to this year for Robert Saleh. If they do make that wild card, I think he'll still have a job going into the next season.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I don't think he should receive as much hate as maybe he is already because he's a defensive coach and he has drastically improved that defense.
No.
But head coach, they have to make shit happen on. Excuse my language. Make stuff happen on both sides of the ball. So.
No,
it'll be interesting.
I completely understand that. I think defensively, you're right. They've definitely made up a lot of ground. But I think as far as offense, is concerned, like Rodgers is such a veteran and he demands so much attention. I feel like that he's going to be commanding that offense.
Oh, there's no doubt that he will.
More than anyone. And
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. So it's going to take him to lead the offense and hope that the defense just does their job. And that's what Saleh is going to have to continue to improve, is the defense, keep working on it. And that's it.
Aaron Rodgers will have a very prominent presence. He will.
Yeah, of course.
That's just how he is. If you have listened to Aaron Rodgers, if you know his personality, he's a natural born leader. Can be controversial at times, but he'll definitely take the reins with that offense and, try and make it into something similar to what he had in Green Bay with Devontae Adams and, the connection he had with him there. And, he has the weapons to do it. So I think it'll be interesting. There could be drama there, but if they can keep it all in check, they could have a good team.
Z, before we move on, also news with the Cowboys. They said we might not be keeping Dak Prescott after this year, depending on what happens.
Last year was contract.
Yeah, you saw that, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of controversy over whether the Cowboys should keep Dak or not. They're paying him a lot of money.
Yeah, there's going on with that, and I heard stuff with like CeeDee Lamb too, and CeeDee Lamb and Dak. Like that last game, they had a little controversy and stuff. I mean, if Dak doesn't, not even Dak, I think just if the team doesn't make it to the championship game at a bare minimum, if we don't make it past that divisional round, I think regardless, Dak has to go. Like, just need fresh people at that.
It might not even be Dak's performance. I think there's a lot of tension between management and the players, and even the head coach and Mike McCarthy.
Forget about McCarthy. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, I personally don't think Mike McCarthy's a good head coach. I think he comes.
He's not your kind of coach.
Year after
He's
year.
not my kind of coach either.
Yeah.
He's not a vocal leader. He's not the kind of coach the Cowboys need and have needed for years. We thrived back when we had Bill Parcells, Jimmy Johnson, Tom Landry. Cowboys have had some of the best coaches in the history of the league, and nothing against McCarthy, who won a Super Bowl with the Packers, and Rodgers.
Look what McCarthy did. Look what McCarthy did after that Super Bowl. He won that Super Bowl in the 2010-2011 season. The Packers consistently after that would go back to the NFC Championship game and blow it. And he wound up losing the locker room with that team and being forced out. And it seems like the same pattern is happening here with the Cowboys, where, they're back in the playoffs every single year. This year they win the division and, they blow it. And that's how you lose a locker room. That's how you have guys saying we want out, because when it comes down to it, he's not making it happen.
And that's been Dallas. I mean, that was Jason Garrett too. Same thing with him. We got far. We made it to now. We got unlucky a couple times, whatever. But we never passed that threshold. We never got past the divisional round. And we just, unfortunately, the reality is we need a coach that's going to whip these guys into shape, because these Cowboys players, I feel like, are very entitled and honestly have a poor mindset. And I think it was Dalton Schultz, who was a tight end of the Cowboys. He went over to the Texans, and he described his experience at the Cowboys versus his experience with the Houston Texans. And he said, in Houston, obviously the facilities aren't as nice, whatever. Like the Cowboys, like a luxurious estate, like their practice facility, all that. The players are treated like gold. He said people would pay to just walk through and like watch the players like train, and the players would be interrupted in the middle of their training because fans would be literally walking around like the facility. And he said it's too much Hollywood, and the Texans are just an organization that's under the radar. They don't have all the extravagant fan base, publicity, whatever, but they work freaking hard. And that's why the Texans got to where they got this year, is because they worked hard. They were an under-talented team. They had like little name players make it far. And that's because of their mindset. The Cowboys don't have the mindset. And I don't think Jerry Jones is going to hire a coach that brings in that mindset because he wants to have the control. It's been the problem
Yeah.
for years, and it's going to continue to be the problem.
I think I completely agree with what you're saying. I think there's a huge burden put on the players, suiting up in that Cowboys uniform and playing for America's team. There's a set expectation that's already there before they even suit up for a game or practice. And, people just expect them to go out and produce because they play for America's team. So
Yep.
that's something that could, cause tension in a locker room with management, everything. And I do think Jerry Jones is a little, he glamours himself up a little too much.
When Dak has had a little fire under his butt, he has performed. When he starts to get comfortable and everything feels like everybody's high on Dak, that's when he ultimately fails, like he did against Green Bay. Not that it was all his fault, but I remember back when in Dak's rookie year, when Tony Romo was still the quarterback under him, and fans, including my dad, were saying, put Romo in, put Romo in. There's this pressure on Prescott that he has to perform, and he performed. His rookie year was one of his best seasons, just we can remember. But this year, there was a lot of pressure on Dak before the season. Like, this has to be the year. This has to be the year. He performed. Then he got real comfortable. And once it got to that Green Bay game, he looked too comfortable. He looked sloppy at that point. And so we'll see. I mean, this has to be his last chance. What's he in year 7 now? Like, I mean, it's been a long, long time. 5, 6, 7.
Came in 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we're
in
way,
7, 8.
7 or 8 now. So yeah, definitely a lot of expectations there for Dak, and just excited to see if the Cowboys can finally get over that hump.
Still need a running back. That's the other thing.
Yeah. And not a good draft to do it.
Yep.
Well, anyways, let's move off NFL free agency. We'll get into the draft here pretty soon on one of the upcoming episodes. But now to what's going on right now in the sports world. Obviously, the biggest tournament in college basketball of the year, March Madness. I want to start out with just some of my, biggest winners and losers, disappointments, teams that, exceeded or did not meet their expectations. And just to me, starting off with teams that failed expectations, the number one team that comes up would have to be Kentucky.
Yep.
This has happened year in and year out now that, they have not made it far. They lose to a 14th seed this year in Oakland.
Oh, yeah, they lost to Oakland. Yeah. That's right.
They lost to Oakland, and Jack Golke hitting all those threes.
Yep.
They're just not getting it done in the tournament anymore. They're not the same team they were in, the mid 2010s when, they were consistently a 1 seed, one of the top picks to win the tournament, back when they had guys like Marvin Bagley and other guys going number 1 overall.
Yeah.
So just really a big change over this, past couple of years for Kentucky and the way they're performing in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Kentucky, now that you mention it, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the number of like big name players that came out of Kentucky, and I just feel like the program as a whole has definitely taken a decline. And this year is an utter disappointment. As the 3 seed, like you said, they were previously the 1 seed on multiple occasions in the past decade. And to lose to Oakland, who had their own little magic moment right there with that firepower with that guy who was drilling threes that day. What was his name?
Jack Golke.
Yeah, Jack Golke. So that guy, credit to him. But overall, Kentucky just disappointment this year for sure.
Another high seed to go out in the first round. Auburn lost to Yale. I thought Auburn would, go far in the tournament. I know a lot of people had Auburn winning the tournament. They were a good SEC team in the regular season. But yeah, the tournament stuff happens that you would not expect. So that was the other big loser I saw from, this year's tournament, and you get a few every year.
You always
But
do.
yeah,
Every tournament has its moments like this, and Yale, an Ivy League team coming out of nowhere and
yeah,
beating a
Princeton did it
that's
last year.
exactly. There's always those moments are always going to happen. You have however many games in this tournament, a couple of them are bound to be, flips and upsets. And that was just a big one this year was also, like you said, Yale over Auburn. And, Yale also got destroyed in the next game. But that's the point is that just one game, one moment, one game, and that's it. You're done. You're out of the tournament. And obviously, on a good day, on any day, Auburn should be beating Yale. But these moments happen, and that was a disappointment.
And last disappointment for me would have been just how the Mountain West Conference performed. Coming into the tournament, I thought that the committee showed a lot of disrespect toward the Mountain West Conference. I thought more teams should have been in. Maybe they should have been higher seeds, but they all were in that 10 to 12 range. And two teams that stuck out to me that I thought would get the win in the first round were New Mexico and Nevada. Nevada blows a 17-point lead to Dayton, and New Mexico comes out flat and loses by 20 points. So maybe the committee had it right. It kind of showed with those big losses. The only team to really come through out of that conference was Grand Canyon, and they got stomped in the second round. So for what I thought was going to be, strong performances out of an underrated conference didn't really show up. So, yeah, it just goes to show again that you can do all the research in the world, and it's not gonna translate over to the tournament.
Listen, Zay, I didn't do too much research, but there was just some gut feeling I had that NC State was going to go far, and I think it's time that we
I
bring
also had NC State
the
going
big
far.
NC
Yeah,
State. I
yeah,
read one article, and this is how the fans do it. They read one article, they see one TikTok, whatever it is, and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to pick them to be the dark horse, to be the team. And a lot of people before the tournament were high on NC State, and they said, watch out, they might go far. That was one of the top dark horses, one of the top teams that they said they have firepower, they might upset. And boy, they've made it very, very, very far with Mr. DJ Burns.
yep. DJ Burns has been balling out in the tournament, and just the turnaround from this team. They did not start the season well, went on a little run, but coming up to the ACC tournament, they were back on a losing streak. They were one of the lower seeds in the tournament. They run all the way through, hit a magical buzzer beater to send one of their games to overtime, win that game, knock off North Carolina in the AC tournament final, gives them that berth of the 11th seed. They don't win the ACC tournament. They're not in March Madness right now. They're not in the Final Four.
Forget about that. That was another thing.
Yeah. They run the table. They get to the Final Four. They're playing Purdue. Mas, give me your pick in that game because this is going to be an interesting one.
I'm riding the dark horse here. I'm taking NC State. I just love the vibes, man. I just love everything about it. I love the run, and these runs usually, eventually they come to an end. And a lot of people are saying Purdue, they're a 1 seed, no?
Yeah, Purdue is a 1 seed.
So they're saying Purdue, a 1 seed, like this is it. This is NC State. They're done. Purdue's got the 7'3" monster, and they got DJ Burns, and they don't think NC State's going to be able to push past Purdue. But me personally, I like to ride with the underdogs, so I'm sticking with NC State. I think they're going to make it all the way to the championship, and I think they're going to defeat Purdue. I think DJ Burns, just everything about him, he's meant for this kind of tournament, and so is their team. And Purdue has a history of choking, and I think they're going to choke once again. And I think NC State is going to make it far, and I think that's it. I think that's going to be the end of story for that.
Well, an 11 seed has never won the tournament before. This reminds me a lot of Loyola Chicago back in 2018 when they made a magical run to the Final Four. all stories come to an end. I think the road ends here for NC State. Zach Edey's the best player in all of men's basketball, men's college basketball. He's 7'3". He has a height and reach advantage over DJ Burns, who, you know, isn't the most athletic, but he is a big presence on the inside. I really think that the game comes down to the two of them, both on the offensive and defensive side of the
Oh,
ball, and what they
matchup.
can do. And I just think Zach Edey has the physical advantage and the skill advantage over DJ Burns. There's always that one player on that miracle team that, balls out while the team runs the table. But this is the toughest matchup for him by far. He's been their X factor, to this point. But Zach Edey's about to win his second men's college basketball player of the year award. And like you said, Purdue does have a habit to choke. This is the first Final Four they've been in since 1980, and they've been one seeds for the past couple of years. I think the Boilermakers finally get it done and get to the final. They just have more star power. They're better on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and they've been looking really good in their past couple of games when I know for sure a lot of people had them getting knocked out.
All right. I mean, we're just going to disagree on that one. I think I just love the underdog, man. I just love the idea, and I think they got a shot. I just can't wait to watch that battle between those two, and I'm rooting for DJ. We'll see. You think he'll get drafted?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Is he a senior?
I'm not sure.
He is a senior. I looked it up. He is a senior. I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I don't think so. They said they projected he'd be undrafted.
Well, on the other side of the bracket, we have UConn versus Alabama. I'm really surprised to see Alabama here. 4 seed. They've played really well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And their point guard, Mark Sears, really showed up in the last game, hitting 6 threes. But UConn has the best offense in all of college basketball right now. Their margin of victory is off the charts. They're beating teams by 20 and 30 every week in the tournament. Nobody's really giving them a run for their money. People were saying San Diego State was going to be a challenge, beat them by 30.
Yeah.
I just don't see UConn losing in this game. Alabama has a significantly weaker offense, and even though Alabama does have a really good defense, I don't think they're going to be able to stop UConn enough to keep up on the offensive side of the ball themselves. So I have UConn going through. We'll get to the final after I hear your prediction.
I also have UConn. I think Alabama has done something special with what they have with their group, and they've made a really nice run. Again, I just think even though they have a solid defense, it's just I think UConn has so much momentum and so much strength that I just don't see them losing this game really at all. And again, you said my prediction for the final. I'm going to be realistic here. I think it's going to be UConn versus NC State. And I think that UConn is going to win, and I think they're going to win by a pretty good amount. I think NC State's going to win this game against Purdue. I really do believe it in my heart. My heart wants to believe in them, and I do. But I think I have UConn winning the tournament, especially at this point. I had them winning the tournament, I believe, before it even started, and a lot of people did. But at this point, with the momentum they're riding with, the strength of their team, they got to be favorites, big-time favorites to win the tournament at this point. And I don't think it matters who they play at this point. I think if they're playing their game and barring injuries and crazy things that might happen, UConn has to be the favorites to win the whole thing no matter what. I just think that they're going to be playing NC State in the finals, and I don't think that final game will be close. I think NC State will come to a sad end, but it will be in the final game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with the UConn pick. They were the favorite coming into the tournament. A lot of people said the tournament was over before it even started because of how, studded this team is. They won it last year. It looks like it might be the first repeat in almost 2 decades. And yeah, they're just fun to watch. Their offensive output is off the charts. I don't think Purdue is going to be able to keep up. Zach Edey's great, but he does have footwork problems, and just how good this UConn team is. He's going to get tired. They're going to run the floor against him, and it's just going to put a lot of problems on Purdue, in my opinion. UConn, just to me, is the clear-cut better team. They have all-around playmakers, and yeah, that's my prediction for the final.
We'll see. I mean, we got anything else to say? Any other topics?
Now, that's really all that's going on in the sports world right now.
Hold on. I don't think we got to talk about this, but I went to the Italy game last week.
No,
Did I tell you?
That?
Okay, yeah, Italy played against Ecuador in a soccer friendly at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey, and me and my family went, and some pretty cool moments. Me and my little cousin met Gigi Buffon and Giorgio Chiellini, two Italian soccer legends, before the game, and we got to watch them play. They won 2-0 against Ecuador, and very nice, beautiful goals that were scored. And the environment was crazy. The fans are going nuts. And this was a friendly before the Euro tournament that's happening this summer. So, Italy looked all right. But I definitely think coming up, we should maybe cover a little bit of that and maybe talk about some predictions next time.
Yeah, for sure. Haven't done too much research on the Euros yet. I do know that England is looking very good going into the tournament.
They have Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid.
Yeah, they have a lot of good players there. Well, this is going to wrap it up for this episode of Stark Contrast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll have a lot coming up soon. So, look out for some of the next streams. Thank you, guys.
See you, fellas.